Hello everyone, it's Jessica here with another layout for the Peartree Cutfiles design team. Today I'm using this sweet little pumpkin cut file from the November 2024 release, and I'm starting this by prepping some textured white cardstock with some clear gesso by Vibez. I just like to use my spatula with that and just spread it on like you saw, and then I just set it aside to dry for a little bit. I've got my cut file here, which I've actually cut out 3 times. So I have a Tracy Reed collection here, which I'm really loving. It's called Jack and Scully, and I printed it out on my printer and cut out all the little bits and pieces on my coordinating Cricut machine. And I've got these beautiful background papers from that collection, and I'm going to rip them up. So I'm just using sections of these. I just tore the edge, and I'm going to use one of my daughter's photos on this layout from a little photo shoot that I just did with her for her turning 2. She turns 2 actually on November 3rd, so I did a little pumpkin photo shoot with her, and I'm going to use one of those today along with these little pattern papers, which I am tearing up as you see and layering them, which you actually don't see much of that other paper here on the bottom once I cover it all up with everything, but it is kind of peeking through at the end, so it's still okay. I'm actually going to add some mixed media to my background with some Shimmerz paints, so that's why I pre-prepped my paper with that clear gesso. So the colors that I'm going to be using today are the ones in the bottles. That orange one is called Jack-o'-lantern, it's a Vibez, and then the black one is a color splash product called Black Hole, and the little pot there that you see is an Inklinz product, and it's called Sunkissed. And some of those actually come in the most recent kit for October, I believe it was, and you can get those with the papers and all that goodness. But I am just using them as a standalone product here to add some mixed media onto my background. So I'm just spritzing a little bit on some packaging here because I just wanted to be able to flip it and just smush it down directly on my paper if I wanted to. The black, I didn't want it super dark. I just kind of wanted a grayish hue. So that's why you see me kind of putting it down quickly and then drying it up quickly with my paper towel because I just wanted a little hint of that color. Same with this orange one over here. This is a lighter color. It's an Inklinz product, but it's got quite a bit of shimmer to it still. And it is a really light color once it dries. So if you want it to be more pigmented, you just need to add a few more layers of it to get it more pigmented like that middle one is. The middle one is Jack-o'-lantern Vibez. So it's really pigmented and you can really see that color very well, which is actually what I was going for on this layout. I wanted that middle orange color to be really vibrant and pretty, and the other colors to just be kind of muted and kind of like a watercolor effect. So that's what I was going for. And I love how it turns out in the end. You see me kind of drawing up these pools as I go so that it's not super wet and so that it dries quickly because I'm a super impatient person when it comes to mixed media. So I want things to dry fairly quickly, and I didn't feel like pulling up my heat gun or anything like that. So I'm just kind of drying up the larger pools with my paper towel roll. So that's kind of what it's going to look like. I'm going to add some more splatters and just a little bit more layering here. I'm just using kind of what I have left over on this little packaging piece just to add some little splatters. And then once this part dries, I'm going to pull out some white acrylic paint as well and add some splatters of white onto this too. It just adds a little pop of dimension, which is really the look that I was going for. So that's kind of what that's going to look like once that background paper is on top. I'm going to cover up the top portion of that, and I just wanted that mixed media to kind of peek out the bottom. I have some cheesecloth here that I just cut a strip down. I think I actually ripped this strip off, but this is just a little piece that I had left over from another layout. So save that paint because I just used it to dry up the paint with. It makes your cheesecloth really cool. It makes just a really neat effect on there, and I'm actually going to tuck that around my photo. So there's my paint splatters with just some white acrylic paint, nothing fancy. It's just some cheap craft paint from the craft store. I have my little background piece of papers here that I'm going to go ahead and attach at this point. My mixed media is fairly dry. It did cause a little bit of warping, but it levels out as soon as I add everything else to it. I could run this through my laminator, but I try not to do that because when I'm a super impatient person and I run it through the laminator, it tends to get stuck to the laminating sheet that it runs through. So I try not to do that if I don't have to. I just like to flatten it out with the laminator when it's already dry, if I absolutely have to. But most of the time, these pages tend to flatten out when I put them in my albums anyway, so I don't really worry about the warping anymore too much. Here's my photo I'm going to use. I was kind of back and forth between which one I wanted to use. I had a couple of them picked out for this layout, but I settled on this one. It's just a closer shot of her with these big pumpkins, and I just thought it was so adorable and just perfect for this layout. So I'm going to go ahead and with that one. I'm using some Nuvo glue here to glue my layers together. I'm just using the outline of the first two cut files that I cut. I cut the one in the orange background paper and the other one's just a smooth white cardstock. So I'm just going to glue these layers together first. And I wanted my white to be on top to kind of make that pop off the page, but I still wanted to have some of the patterns peeking out. So I used the hide contour feature on my Cricut Design Space Studio. Design Space. I think it's just Design Space. I think it used to be called something Studio, but anyways, I used my Design Space software and I just used the contour feature to hide all those layers and contour, and then I cut it out again for that black pattern paper for the very back. So as you can see there, I've got that all glued together at this point. Still trying to decide which photo I wanted to use, but again, I am going to settle on this one here that's on my desk now. I've got my little middles that need to go into the P's, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere those now. I do use both of them from both the orange pattern paper and the white because I figured I might as well keep with that theme and adhere both of those since I used them on everything else. So I'm just adhering those real quick, just using my Nuvo glue again and some tweezers because those pieces are really small. So it's just easier for me to hold on to them with the tweezers. And I think that's all I'm going to do to it. So it looks super cute that way. I thought about adding some stitching to it, but that's what I was contemplating there. I thought, oh, this would look really cool if I add some machine stitching, but I really didn't feel like trying to feed that through my sewing machine and it getting stuck or caught up in it. I thought it would be a lot easier to do the machine stitching once it was glued down to my layout, so that was my plan. But then once I actually finished this layout, I decided not to do any stitching on it because it just looks so cute without it, so I didn't do any of that anyways. And sometimes that's how my layouts come together. I have these ideas, and then once I start working on it and actually playing around with all the bits and pieces, I decide to go a totally different direction. But that happens, and it's okay. That's part of the creative process. I've got these little papers here. It's just kind of like an ephemera pack. It comes with a whole bunch of different sized envelopes and different things by 49 and Market. So that's what I'm using here. And then I am also using the little black film strip, which is also by 49 and Market. So I'm just going to tear the excess off of this one just to give it a nice roughed edge to match all of the other kind of rough layers in this. So I'm just going to add a bunch of little bits and pieces behind my photo. I like a lot of layers behind my photos, so that's all I'm doing here is I'm just adding little bits and pieces to layer this up and just make it a little bit more interesting. There's my film strip. I'm going to actually cut this down and cut off the excess, but I wanted to get it adhered to the back of my photo so I knew exactly where to cut because I didn't want to cut it and mess it up and it be too short. So, which is fine. I could have actually fixed that too just by cutting it in half and just popping it out where I wanted it to, but I didn't feel like messing around too much, so I just glued it to the back first and then I just trimmed the excess off. And I do like to recycle as much as I can when I'm scrapbooking, so any scraps that I have like this, it's just going to go onto the layout too because I feel like that can just be another additional layer right there. Here's my cheesecloth coming in now. I've got this all pretty. It's got all that color from the inks on it. So it just looks really cool and grungy and I love it. So I'm just going to kind of just fluff it up and just fringe it out a little bit. And I'm just going to end up gluing that down with some Nuvo glue as well. So I'm still working on these layers here. I just wanted this to all be exactly where I wanted it to be and everything kind of put down in their place. And then I went ahead and pulled out another ephemera pack by 49 Market as well, just to grab some of these orange pieces that are in there. I knew there was a couple of orange little corner squares and some labels and things like this. So I wanted to pull out those little things to match this kind of orange themed layout. So once I'm done embellishing with this pack, I'm going to do some stamping here on this little tab. I'm fluffing up the edges of those, but once I get all of these done, I'm going to move on to the embellishment pack that goes with this Tracy Reed collection that I'm using. I cut a bunch of pieces of the ephemera from her collection on my Cricut machine. It's a print, it's kind of like a digital collection that you print on your printer and then cut out the coordinating pieces on your Cricut machine. Super easy. It sounds more complicated than what it is. It took me, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes total with all the cutting and printing, and because my printer is upstairs where my Cricut is downstairs, so it took a little finagling. And a little bit of exercise going up and down the steps, but it was okay. It honestly only took me about 10 minutes to cut all this out. So it sounds like more work than what it is, but I love this collection, and I love the fact that I own these pieces now that I bought from her, so I can literally cut these embellishments out as many times as I want, because it never fails that, you know, I get a pack of ephemera or die cuts or something, and I use all my favorite ones first on the very first layout that I do, and then I get to the next layout with the collection and I'm like, oh man, that would have looked really cute on this one as well. So that kind of alleviates that problem. You can just print as many as you want and keep cutting as many as you want. So I really, really love this collection. I think it's super cute, and I was really excited to get to play with this today. And I just love all these little bits. I love that sweet little ghost that has the little balloons, but he actually does not stay on my layout. I swapped him out in the end for a little pumpkin. So I believe it's this guy. I'm going to put him there instead. I felt it was a little bit more appropriate, being that we are talking about my sweet little pumpkin here. So I'm going to use that as well as a bunch of these florals, and I love these florals. I just think they're so beautiful. It's the perfect little mix of color with the black and the orange, and I just love it. I love this collection. I cannot say it enough, and I love this cut file. I think it's just perfect for this photo of my baby girl, and it would have been perfect for any of the other ones that I have. So I was super excited as soon as I saw this one to use it for at least one of my photos. It is a single photo layout. I'm trying to kind of get away from those as much, but they are my favorite. I just really love to focus on more of the design aspect of my pages and the creative process versus having a ton of photos on my pages. So I know that's not for everyone, but I do love it. And my 12 by 12 books are getting rather large, and I'm getting a lot of them. So my solution to that lately has been I am just scrapbooking my favorite photos or favorite memories in my 12 by 12s, and then I have focused my camping layouts as more of a travel notebook now. So I've downsized those pages a lot into smaller albums for all of our camping adventures. And then anything that's left over, like the smaller photos that I print, I am now putting all of those into a Stop the Blur memory planner. So that's kind of more of our like day-to-day adventures, and nothing, just no like trips or anything big like that. I may kind of feature one or two photos of those, but I will just cut down a lot of the bulk in my 12 by 12 albums by doing it this way. So hopefully I can keep up with my memory planner as well, because right now I'm working back in 2023, which doesn't sound bad, but I skipped a big part of it. So I have I think I started in 2022, and then I stopped and skipped the rest of that year, and then started back up in 2023 randomly. So right now I'm working on 2023. I'm kind of trying to catch up, but I'm really not worried about staying current, because I keep all of my photos in my albums in date order by month. I usually print about every 2 months. I go through the photos on my phone, transfer them to my computer, not to my computer, but to my external hard drive, and then I print them out. And I usually try to do that every couple of months at the end of the month. So that's what I'm working with right now. I'm pretty up to date on printing, and I have all my photos just documented and in my albums just ready to go. So here's this one. I finished it off with some Catherine Puller sequins from the Venus mix, and I love this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this process today and just listening to me ramble, and I hope that I've inspired you to create something beautiful. I'll link the cut file down below in case you want to grab it from the shop. So thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks for being here. Have a great day. Bye-bye.